Hey, welcome to WorshipQ here at worshipteamcoach.com. And this morning I've got with me, or today actually, it is morning though. Today I've got with me Jason Houtsma. Is that right? Did I pronounce that
It's
right?
it's it's Houtsma.
Houtsma. Oh,
Yes, it's yeah, I
hmm.
know. And actually, I was talking about you earlier, and I was like, I'm meeting with John Nickel or Nicole,
Oh, yeah. So okay, yeah,
John and
it's
Jason, John and Jason.
John and Jason, Nickel and Houtsma. There we go. Well, cool. Hey, that was one thing I forgot to ask before we got started. I'm sure there's a few other things too, but we'll just keep rolling here. But Jason is the creative director and co-founder of the site called WorshipArtistry.com, and I just want to just share briefly how I found Worship Artistry. It was because I was cheap and lazy, and what happened was I think I'd seen your site come out and poked around. I'm like, oh, it's a membership site. I have to pay. I don't want to do that. And then I was a few months later. Brenton Brown had released his "God My Rock" song, and I had heard him do that at the CMS conference back in the spring. And I'm like, oh, I'd love to introduce that song. And it's got that the rockabilly guitar kind of in there, and it's pretty involved guitar wise. And I started trying to learn it, and I'm like, oh, this is going to take forever. I wonder if it's online anywhere. And I happened to see that it was on your site, and I thought, well, it could be worth just trying this membership out for. And I got on there and I learned God My Rock and all the intricate guitar stuff. And I went, man, that is so worth the $8 that I just spent. And I realized that even if I only learn one song a month, it's just so worth it. So here's me being cheap and lazy and finding your site. And but it is such
Our
a
customer, sir.
yeah.
Cheap and lazy.
Yeah,
We get
yeah,
you.
yeah, but that's great because one part of it is I'm a visual learner, and so as much as I practiced guitar early on, I had a horrible time learning songs by ear. I don't do it well, and I think it's probably because it didn't come natural that I didn't work at it, and so it was kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy there. But so people like you, I really am happy that you're out there doing what you're doing. So. Before we dive into talking about worshipartistry.com, Jason, tell me a little bit about your family, a little bit about your music career, your time in church music and worship music. I mean, and yeah, just give us a little background on you.
Yeah, I'm 34. I got two little boys. They're almost 6 and 3 right now. They got their birthdays in the same week,
Nice.
and they are beautiful wife. I live in Bellingham, Washington, and yeah, it's kind of interesting. I've been playing guitar since I was 15, and I started there. And then when I was in college, I it was like my senior year, and I'd done a lot of music ministry stuff, and it kind of got to the point where I wanted to kind of look at some other things, but I needed a job, and so I was like, well, I could either get a job or I could teach guitar, and I was the main guy that played at my school. We had I think at school is about 5,000 people or whatever. And so as soon as I put up a couple of flyers, I immediately had like 20 students.
Hmm.
So I charged next to nothing and just kind of like got my feet under me and, came out to Washington, and I spent my whole life thinking that I needed to do something more responsible and keep trying to get regular jobs. And God has always just kind of pulled me back into music
Nice.
always. I mean, I've got like 20 stories of how it's like, well, and then it's like, well, I can't do this anymore. I need to do that. And, I somehow have this amazingly supportive wife who's like, no, you're supposed to be a musician.
Yeah,
So
that's
do
good.
that. So started teaching, slowly built my lesson, group until I got to a point where I had about, 40 students.
Wow.
And once again, started kind of looking at other jobs, and then Worship Artistry opportunity came along, and been working really hard at that for about the last 2.5 years.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, that's 40 students. I don't know if people grasp that. I had 30 students for about 2 weeks at one point in my life and just about went crazy, sitting in that
Yeah.
little room in a music store and person after person. So yeah, that's
Never,
huge.
never actually worked in a music store. I think that's probably why I like it so
Yeah, that's
much.
good.
Always had
Yeah,
a dedicated spot in my house.
good. That's good. Yeah, those little music store rooms, man. Well, they got the funk of other teachers, in there anyway, and the students. And so anyway, we'll move on from that point. Um, but yeah, so tell us a little bit more about worship artistry. You talked a little about the things led to it, but who's involved with it? What do people get for the membership and that sort of thing?
Yeah, basically we built the site in a way that we thought we wanted to do something that everybody could use. That it wouldn't be something that was just for beginner guitarists or just for intermediate guitarists.
Yeah.
Or so that was kind of the concept going in, and I think we've kind of done that in the way. I always say it this way. It's like I have a friend of mine who writes books, and he writes kind of those like make your life better kind of books. And I'm like, dude, you need to start a whole new thing. Stop writing books. Just write pamphlets, because you're just trying to stretch this like two ideas into this big long thing that I don't want to read. Just like give it to me in bullet points. Like that's all I want, and that's what I want, right? Mm-hmm. But not everybody wants that, and so as a guitar teacher, I know that there are some people that they just want you to quick show them something, and that's kind of the way I am. I don't want to take a bunch of time to do stuff. I want just give it to me straight, and then there's other people that it's like, what do you mean by put your finger here, And so we wanted to build the site in a way that for guitarists like me and and for more advanced guitar players, that hey, I don't have time to sit through a 20-minute YouTube video to learn this like 1-minute riff that the guy is going to get to at like 11:15 in the video, And so we built it in a way that it's like, hey, we got quick loops. You can watch a playthrough of the song. You can zoom in on the guitar, and it'll take you like 2 minutes. Here's the tabs, right? Mm-hmm. But then I also realized that there's a lot of people that like don't know anything, and so we built every lesson in a way that we have one section that kind of teaches you guitar from scratch. Mm-hmm. Then once you're in the lessons, then all those lessons walk you through how to play each chord, but you don't have to watch that. They're all chaptered. Everything's organized in a way that can make it so that you can just jump right to it, and you're not wasting time. But all the instructions there if you need it. And so that was kind of the concept behind it. It was like we really want to help everyone get better.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, and I find it is so helpful. I mean, the work and the quality that you guys have put into worshipartistry.com is huge, because you've got the looping things, which is just once you get it learned and you want to get it up to speed, because a lot of times that's where guitar players fail, is they learn something but they don't realize they don't really have it down yet. And at least that's me. I think I have it learned, but then I get on stage and I go, whoops, I didn't quite get that learned. And so that looping thing where you can play it in time and everything over and over is just, I think, invaluable. So that's great. So you are you're learning all this stuff. You're learning in your frequent asked questions. It talks about how you try to get these songs pretty spot on. I mean, do you ever how much time do you spend on learning songs and getting them right for each one?
Man, it's sometimes really hard. I mean, every lesson takes it can be anywhere between 10 and 15 hours total, just out of my time. And so I think the hardest thing, and kind of the in some of our earlier lessons, where it was, as you kind of go through the site, I was growing, learning, our very first lessons. I'm just kind of like, you can tell how old the lesson is by how many times I say so so trying to or we've now gotten to the point where the acoustic guitar is a piece of cake for me. Like that, I can find weird. I have that. I've been doing that for so long that it's like I can find weird sounding chords. I can be like, no, it's this chord, but no, there's this note in it, so it has to be played way up here, and try to make it as exact as possible. Electric guitar, I've done recording. John, you've probably done some recording. You put like 5 or 6 guitars on a song, So really what we've tried to do is, initially I was trying to like, well, here's this part, and here's this part, and here's this part. But recognizing now that, electric guitar, you're lucky if you have one decent electric guitar player, much less 2 or 3, or. And so what we've tried to do is arrange the songs in ways that that it's like, as one electric guitar player, I have to go through and pick out, this is the most important part for this part. This is the most important part. And then it's like, well, this riff's kind of cool, but if you stop the chords here, you're in trouble. So make sure you do this. And I kind of talk through the process of how to do it. So that's the electric guitar parts are by far the much harder piece of it because there's so much arranging for it.
Yeah.
It's spot on. It'll sound spot on, but as far as trying to figure out what's most important is probably the challenge.
Yeah, yeah. Like I love how Gateway Church has put out their videos on, I think it's worshiptraining.tv or worshipteam.tv. It's one of those two. And so, but they have 3 different guitars and they show each one. And I'm like, okay, I got one electric right now on this Sunday. So what do we need to do? So I love that you do that. And you're thinking about the average church out there that doesn't have 3 electric players and all that, and the loops running and things like that. So
as a friend of mine said, he said, hey man, he's like, if I've got a church and I've got like 2 kind of intermediate guitar players that both need to watch music videos to like learn the parts, I probably don't want 2 electric guitar players.
Yeah, exactly. That's good stuff. Well, let's talk about some guitar players. And what would you say, as you've been teaching and you've been working with guitar players, talking acoustics, especially since you said it's a place where you're real comfortable at, is what are some common mistakes and bad habits that you see acoustic guitar players making in worship?
It's a couple things. I think for the whole site, I've been writing music for a long time. I've done a lot of recording and that sort of thing, and so I understand arrangement. And a lot of times, a lot of these songs, they don't have acoustic guitar in them even. And I think as our default thing is, especially as worship leaders, and I do it myself. I have to like force myself and build trust with my team that it's like if my team is working well together, I don't need to play the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I can find my spot and I can find my. I think the danger with acoustic guitar players is we just have it in our hand and so we just do it and it becomes like a safety net.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you need that because sometimes maybe your band isn't at a place where you can just kind of do that. But I think thinking in the way that how does my guitar fit into this song versus me just playing guitar to play it and fill space, And so I think to me that's kind of one of the biggest things is just kind of learning that spot of where do I fit?
Mm.
Do I fit in this song and how do I get the most out of my acoustic guitar, not just, strum away.
Yeah, not just chop wood for every beat of every measure.
And this one we're going to start with guitar and then the drums are going to come in.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, maybe we could trust our drummers sometimes.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, so pick on electric guitar players for a minute. What do you see with electric players in worship?
Oh my gosh. I'd been in church forever. I'm sure you know this. Electric guitar players are the biggest like criminals when it comes to noodling. It's like, I'm not going to learn this part. Everyone else just play in what key is this song in? Is it an E? All right, sweet. And then you just riff through the whole song. Where else in music does somebody, besides blues, somebody just guitar solo through an entire song? And that's like 9 times out of 10, if you don't actually learn the song, that's what you're doing. You're just going to, I'll just riff here and then I'll riff here.
Guilty.
It's me passing.
Yep.
So I think that's kind of one of the things with the site is, what I really try and put forward is just learn the parts. And you can expand. Like, I'm not one of those people that it's like, it's got to be so rigid and you should sound just like the CD. But know the part, know how it works, and then mold around it. Don't just solo your way through the song. To me, it's like, it's kind of fun, but it's also just kind of lazy.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, I've been there.
As have I. I remember there was one time when I was first learning to play, and I had it was totally forming for me. I was playing at my church, probably like 16 years old. Had my amp. I don't think I was even like in the system at all, and I just like wailed through like a whole set. And I was right next to the bass player, and I'm like, I don't even think I was on, and I kind of like gave him kind of one of these like, yeah, right. And he was kind of like an older guy, and it was like, yeah, that was a little rough. Maybe a little less soloing, and it was just kind of like, oh, maybe I'm not supposed to do that.
Nice. Yep, learning the hard way. It's always fun. So that's great. All right, so let me ask you this: if a player came to you and said, "Hey, I've got 1 hour. What can you teach me that would be in this 1 hour that would be really helpful and really important for worship?" What's one concept or maybe a couple small concepts you'd teach someone?
Man, it's It's tough, because everybody's at such a different level. I think that's the thing that you always struggle with as a teacher, trying to find the space for everything. You know, I think for acoustic players, the biggest thing I'd spend time on is just consistency and creativity. Um,
Mm.
Learning how to do things in rhythm, but still be interesting when you're doing them. I think a lot of acoustic players, we kind of just, the biggest complaint I hear from guys is like, oh, worship songs, man, they're all just four chords. Like it's worship music boring. And it's like, well, that's because you're letting it be boring. You cannot be boring. And so, that's got, you've been on our site, our solo acoustic section always kind of has these arrangements that kind of bring in all these other aspects and stuff. And so I'd probably spend time on that, and then with electric players, I'd probably spend time on kind of learning to use your ears more and to, you once again, kind of use creativity to hear the parts and then expand on them and keep it interesting for yourself, so that you're not just doing rote memorization and kind of taking the life out of it. It's which I know it might sound kind of opposite of what I just said about the noodling thing, but
Mm-hmm.
kind of learn. It's hard to teach. It would be hard to teach that in an hour.
Yeah.
But it would be important.
But it would be important. Yeah. Kind of an artificial setting I put you in there, but see what kind of answer you give there. It's great. Hey, so with worship artistry, what's your plan for it? I mean, is it going to stay more guitar, or are you looking at expanding in different ways?
I mean, I definitely want to expand it. I think I feel like at this point we've kind of dialed in the guitar thing.
Yeah. Well,
Like we kind of know what we're doing, and now we're starting to already kind of look into drums and look into bass. I actually would really love, and kind of some of the more, those are kind of like no brainers. Those are like, yeah, absolutely. I would really like to set up a like a songwriting section, like teach into songwriting. I mean, I've been writing music for a long time, and I've been writing worship music. And as a guy like that, like I was telling you before we started about how it's like, man, we need more worship songwriters. It seems like there's kind of a lot of folks out there that they either throw something, they write, but they kind of throw something together, kind of like, well, this is it. Like I hear a lot of music out there. I'm like, that's really great. But, honestly, I'm not going to introduce that at my church because the lyrics are just kind of halfway there, or that sort of thing. And it's like we kind of have all the big hitters in worship music. I mean, you got Chris Tomlins and your Hillsongs and all that kind of stuff. But I really want to see us expand in a way that equips people with the tools to know how to write music.
yeah.
I definitely need to somehow find a way to establish myself as somebody who actually knows what I'm talking about, though, because sitting here talking about it's like, well, yeah, cool, Jason. What hit songs have you written? Well, yeah.
And that's the thing that you can write a great song. Like when I was going on to Nashville, I would sit in these writer in the writer rounds and things like that, and I would hear the songwriters play these things that were just incredible songs, and they knew that they were never going to get them on the radio or whatever. They would never be hits, but they were better songs than what the hits were oftentimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we do have this kind of hit mentality, or it has to be done by a famous person. So, but yeah, that's great. And when you're talking about the whole thing with somebody just kind of throwing a song together, I heard Mia Fields of Hillsong. She was talking about she was saying how God, how people will say God gave me this song, and she was like, in her Australian accent, she's like, well, maybe because God doesn't want it anymore, and it was
just like, if God gave you that song, it would be the best thing you ever heard.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not.
God doesn't want it anymore. It was so funny, because and everyone was like kind of taken aback by the way she said it. But anyway, that's good stuff.
Yeah, actually, one other thing, real quick. The other thing that I really would like to do is actually, and I haven't quite figured out how to do it, but I really would like to grow into background vocals. Just because I think a lot of background singers, it's like, yeah, I just sing the song. It's like, well, maybe you just sing on the chorus.
Yeah.
Kind of work through those kind of things. And sound engineering, I think, would be a really cool section to teach as well. Just because, I think all of us as worship leaders would love our sound guy to take a course in sound.
Yeah.
So, so I think, kind of something like that, just kind of all the aspects of worship, use technicality, I think we'd really like to do.
That's huge. Yeah. And, I just appreciate so much of what you said. And just after being on your site for a few months, I just this week I actually upgraded to, or last week I think I upgraded my team to it,
That's
and
awesome.
just thought, hey, this is worth it. Even if I only get half of them to work at it, and I just harass and shame the other half for not using it, but it just is so worth it for them to learn the musicality and the
Mhm.
musicianship. It's huge. So. Well, we're almost out of time, but I want to hear from you. You are not up in the Seattle area right now. You're actually in Nashville, right? So
Yes.
can you tell me about what you're doing down there and who you're working with?
Well, it's great, man. I get to sit down tomorrow. I get to sit down with Jeremy Camp
Cool.
in his basement studio, and we're going to play through a couple of his new songs together. Kind of basically use our arrangements of his songs, you know. And so I get to play with Jeremy Camp, which is awesome. Uh,
Nice.
I hope he's not too nervous to meet me. I'm going to try and be
Yeah.
not too intimidating. But he, so I get to do that with him, and so we'll go through some songs, and we'll have those videos up on our site, and we'll probably do some promos and stuff with that. And then on Friday, I'm kind of geeked out. I'm getting to sit down with Jason Ingram for a couple hours,
Nice.
and we're going to get to once again play a couple songs. I mean, Jason Ingram, if you don't know who he is, you know all his songs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the guy, to give you an idea, like Chris Tomlin has something like 160 songs on CCLI. Jason Ingram has 700 something. I mean, he co-writes with everybody. And so I get to sit down and play a couple of his songs with him. And then I think we're just going to kind of have a conversation on songwriting. So, hopefully I'll learn a bunch of stuff and
Nice.
everybody will too. And I'm really amped about that. So,
I
yeah,
bet.
it's cool seeing artists kind of see what we're doing. And I mean, they're just doing this. They're just doing this for free. They've seen the site and they're like, I'd love to help out. And so I think, as we kind of work with these artists, and I mean, nobody knows their songs like they know their songs.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
sit down, and it's just a cool perk for me that look who I'm sitting next to.
Yeah. Well, it was one of my questions I was gonna. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
We're in the same room and everything. I didn't even edit this.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have the split screen going on. Yeah, one of the things I was actually going to ask you is, do you ever call up the original artist and go, dude, what are you doing there? Because I can figure out how you're doing it. So, hey, Jason, I am so happy for you and what you're doing. I'm stoked about worship artistry, and just where it's at now is great. And if you continue to add those things, I can't wait to get more of my team on worship artistry and tell more people about it through worshipteamcoach.com. So, man, I appreciate your time on here, and I'd love to talk again sometime, especially as things grow with worship artistry. So, we'll be talking to you later. And hey, thanks so much for your time.
Well, hey man, thanks for having me. I love your blog. Ever since I've seen it, I'm kind of popping on there quite a bit. Worship Team Coach is killer. So
Thanks.
we'll send the word out to our people as well. Kind of get the word out about you because
I
I love
appreciate
it. It's really well done, John. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Thanks, Jason. We'll talk to you later.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.